And a warm welcome to you. My name is Jamie McGeechan and welcome to Voices Community Education Series. Today we will be exploring the role of a care manager. A warm welcome to you. Thank you to our community education sponsors. With their gracious support, we are able to deliver our education to you this afternoon. Today's presenter is Kristy Bull, Care Manager with Care Choice Management. Kristy Bull is a gerontologist with a true passion for serving the older adult population and their families. Kristy received a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from Southeast Missouri State University, majoring in management with a minor in gerontology. Kristy also holds a graduate certificate in case management from the Boston University School of Social Work and a graduate certificate in nonprofit management and leadership from the University of Missouri, St. Louis. Kristy is Care Management Certified through the National Academy of Certified Care Managers and is an active member of the Aging Life Care Association.
As Jamie said, my name is Kristy Bull. I'm a care manager with Care Choice Care Management. Very happy to be here today. Thanks for giving up your lunch hour to learn a little bit about my organization and what it is that we do. It's an exciting week for Care Choice. It's our 10-year anniversary. Our birthday party is coming up this weekend. So it's very fitting that Jamie asked me to come in and talk a little bit about care management and what it can do for you or someone that you know. So our objectives for the next 45 minutes or so is to let you know what geriatric care management actually is. You'll see maybe some parts of the presentations where it says aging life care. Those two terms can be used interchangeably. I'll also try to let you know when the best time is to utilize or refer to a geriatric care manager and what value a care manager can bring. So Jamie told you a little bit about my career. This is my family. I have 3 young adult children. We're about to grow that this year as my oldest is getting married. And I think I was joking with someone earlier on a Zoom that you can kind of see my gray hair when I'm on Zoom, and it's probably because I'm planning a wedding. But all joking aside, I love working with older adults. I have a passion for them, as I'm sure many of you on the Zoom call today do as well. I was the youngest of 5 kids, and my parents, when they had me, it was a big oops, and they were almost older adults when they had me. So I joke with them throughout the years that I pretty much loved older adults from the get-go. My dad was a pastor. I loved spending time with older adults when we visited them throughout my childhood, and just knew that's what I wanted to study when I grew up. So I've spent the last 20 years or so working with that population. And but I've only been with Care Choice for the last year. So I think it's kind of funny that they asked me to talk to you guys today. So I'm not the most experienced care manager, but I can tell you this, that I do love it. And it is just absolutely the best job I've ever had. So without further ado, let's just talk a little bit about care management. I like to tell people, and it's funny, I should have had my husband join me today because he still asks me, what is it that you do? So I like to tell people I help older adults and their families navigate the aging process. So all of the planning and coordinating of care, things that they do, that's what I can help them do. It's very holistic, which means that we factor in a lot of different things around aging when we help our clients, and it's always centered around them. And like so many other people in the older adult industry, we want to provide the best quality services and care and the best quality of life for our clients as well. So who are these aging life care professionals, or geriatric care managers, as we like to call ourselves? So we are credentialed, experienced professionals. We're there to help families and older adults make decisions and support them along the way. We do not accept any kind of referral fees, no kickbacks or gifts. Everything that we do is designed around what is best for the client. So ethics come into play there. We'll talk more about that. We're also very, we like to say, knowledgeable in 8 core areas of expertise that really kind of help our older adults navigate that aging process. So how long have we been around? Is this something that you've heard of before? I know for me, I knew about Care Choice for probably all of its 10 years because they were on, their leader was on one of the boards that I worked for at a nonprofit. But for a lot of people, they've never heard of it. So I want to give you a little bit of an overview, history, if you will, about care management. So we get our roots from the social service industry, which those of you who are on the call that are social workers, this is like social work 101. So you remember in your early classes in the late 1800s, there was just a huge growth of industry and our cities were booming, but there were a lot of people that needed services and cost efficient services. So social work began and case managers grew. Then fast forward that about 100 years, and we had an increase in the older adult population, a rise in healthcare costs. We had Medicare came on the scene, Medicaid came on the scene, and there became a need for case managers and older adults. Then we started to see a lot of case managers really getting burned out. There was more work to do than there was time to do it. And for those of you who are on the call who are case managers, you know that a lot hasn't changed. But there are those that wanted to do things a little bit more independently. They didn't want a caseload of 40 people. They wanted to maybe help 4 or 5 people and do it very intricately. So that's when we started to see that shift to the field of care managers. And there was also a lot more women that were going back into the workforce, and a lot of people were wanting more flexible positions. So this was around the 1980s. So what are some differences between case management and care management? Because a lot of times those two terms are used interchangeably, but some of the biggest differences is that case managers are primarily social workers or nurses, where care managers, and I'm a good example of this, have very diverse backgrounds because I have a business management background. Although I do have studied gerontology, you'll find people with different majors. Case managers usually work for an agency or an organization or a nonprofit, a hospital, maybe the state or the federal government, where we are private and mostly for-profit agencies. The scope of work is also a little bit different, where sometimes with case management, you have a more linear or limited scope of work where, and it's kind of defined by that organization that you work for. So that's who your big stakeholders are. I mean, always you're client centric, but also those stakeholders are people that you report to, your funding sources, the insurance company or whoever it is, where our sole stakeholder is our client and their families. We get paid directly by clients, although there are some long-term care policies that will cover our cost, where a case manager is usually agency-specific funding. So that's just some of the differences there. There has been a lot of growth in the care management field since the 1980s. And kind of how that shift kind of started, it's kind of funny. So there was a 1984 article in the New York Times that was an article about people who were leaving social work and going into this care management field. And about 12 people read this, that I'm sure a lot more people read the article, but these people got together for the first time in January 1985 and were like, hey, I'm kind of doing what you're doing. And hey, you're kind of doing what I'm doing. So they got together and they found out that there were people all over the country that were kind of starting to do this out on their own. And that led to the first national conference of care managers in 1985. And again, in 1986, a larger conference was held in Philadelphia, and they decided to get together and create an association called the National Association of Private Geriatric Care Managers, who just recently changed its name about 6 years ago, and it's called the Aging Life Care Association. And that is what I belong to, and many, many care managers do as well. So instead of just hearing me talk this entire presentation, I found a little video from our CEO at ALCA, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. So hopefully audio and visual will work here, and I'm going to play that.
Hello and welcome to an Aging Life Care Moment. Today we have with us ALCA CEO Tawny Hamill. Tawny, in your leading the association during its 35th anniversary, what are the important or pertinent points you've noticed?
We've been around 35 years. That's amazing because we're still the best kept secret since sliced bread. I think what this has allowed us to do is to tell the social services community, the healthcare community, that there's so much focus on elder adults. And so I think it's a good time to have our 35th anniversary, and it's given us leverage to go out and market better for our members. And try to help them reach their clients, the family, the caregivers, and the clients themselves.
As CEO, do you see any similarities between earlier board members, early members of the association, and today's board?
You know, Courtney, I think there are some things that are alike. The first group came together to meet, to get to know each other, to network, to form an organization that would help educate them, would help market them and move them forward, would help connect them. And I think the connecting is what's very important to care managers, is to have this network across the country of people that they know that do the same kinds of things that each one of them does. And they can connect and they can talk and they can do peer review on cases and figure out how to do a better job. So I think the founding members were about networking and communication and education. And I think today that's still what our board is about. I think they still want us to help them find clients. And I think they want to grow. And that's exactly what the founders wanted too. So I think a lot of things are still the same, even though some things are different.
And as you know, our 35th anniversary is also falling during the time of the coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic. And as you said, a lot of attention is being focused on older adults. What changes do you see going forward in the aging life care industry?
I think going forward in the aging industry is the need for, as our members would say, eyes on the clients. So I think that means telehealth. It may mean a different way of delivering care management services and other services to the elderly. It may also mean less folks wanting to go into assisted living. They want to stay home. So let's modify their house. See if we can figure out who can be the non-medical caregiver at a reasonable price. I think there's going to be a lot of changes in the aging community, and our members are going to help make that happen safely, and happen the best way possible for the family members, the caregivers, and the clients themselves.
Connie, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
All right, so that was our CEO of ALCA. I think she had some great insights into what we do and what we're about today and where we have been for the last 35 years. But anyone can join an organization, right, and go out there and say that they want to serve seniors. But one thing that does kind of set our organization apart is credentialing. So in 1996, a nonprofit began, the NACM, or National Academy of Certified Care Managers. And basically, they came up with a validated, standardized examination. So this is something to become certified. You have to sit through the exam. It's a 4-hour exam, similar to like if you had to go take the CPA exam. So basically, just ensuring that we know what it is that we're talking about. Also, to become certified, you have to have letters of recommendation, so many hours of work with older adults and working care plans and being under the supervision of other care managers. So you also have to have it renewed every 3 years, and throughout that period, ongoing continuing education. So I look to Voice a lot for their CEUs, as I'm sure some of you do as well, because they have some great ones. All right, so how many of you have seen the movie I Care a Lot? If you haven't seen it, it's probably worth the watch, although it does remind you that there are some bad people in the world doing a lot of bad things for older adults. But I can honestly say, since I've started working with care managers in the last few years, that I have not met a better group of ethical and hardworking people who truly care about older adults. Some of the standards that ALCA goes by, of our ethical standards, just to remind us that we are accountable to clients, the public, to education. But what I love about it, since we're kind of out there on our own and we work privately with individuals, they always have someone that they can go to that are above us if they have a complaint about us. So if you're working with someone at a hospital or a nursing home, there's always that hierarchy that you have someone that you can go to. But with working with an individual care manager, we want that to be the case as well. So we have to hold each other accountable and have a system to, if there's anybody that needs any assistance. And much like social workers or nurses or other people who work with older adults, we have principles that we go by as well, that we uphold ourselves, integrity, loyalty, and so on and so forth. Just things that we want our clients to feel that they can trust us for sure. So I mentioned early on that we kind of have a holistic approach when we work with older adults. And so these are our 8 areas of knowledge that we like to take a look at when we start working with an older adult. So obviously, crisis intervention and health are at the top, but all of these things are of importance and all things that we look at when we have a new client. So financial, housing, their family, local resources, advocacy, and legal aspects. So I'm kind of going to go through each of those and talk a little bit about what it is we might do in those particular areas. So let's start with crisis intervention, because let's face it, most people don't think about utilizing help until they need help. So you don't know what you don't know. So we get a lot of our clients, the majority of them, unfortunately, when there's been a crisis or some sort of diagnosis. So we're there to walk with them side by side through that crisis. Whether that's navigating the emergency room or a hospitalization or a rehab stay, or if all the family lives out of town, we're that 24/7 contact. We're going to tailor our care plan once they've gotten through that crisis and circumstances change. But we are there for a lot of people during a crisis. But then let's move on to health and disability. So if someone comes to us, we're going to, and they have health and disability issues, we're going to help them interact with the healthcare system. So I do attend a lot of care plan meetings, which I have one today at 2:00. I attend a lot of doctor's appointments, just really kind of walking side by side with that client, communicating with the doctors, with the nursing home facilities or wherever it is that they may live, with their families, and so on and so forth, helping them kind of determine what services might be needed, working with the staff to figure that out, whether it's hospice or home health, and just kind of being there for them. And that's how we work through that. Financial. So let's face it, in this day and age, there's not too many people that don't have to worry about finances in some form or fashion, especially older adults. So do they have enough resources to live out the rest of their life? So we're going to go in and kind of big picture review their financial situation. We should be versed in federal, state, and local entitlements or programs that they may benefit from. And if we find holes in their financial realm, we are going to refer them out to experts. So we try to network with insurance agents, accountants, financial planners. Some people may have done things in their financial planning 30 years ago and then never looked at it again. So we're there to kind of look at that big picture, have a reliable network of individuals to refer to, and just kind of walk them through that as well. And next is housing, another big major factor of concern for older adults. So we're going to go in and evaluate whatever that current situation is and help them strategize for the future. We know for a fact most older adults want to age in place, but we also know that that's not always feasible. So what's their short-term goal, moderate goal, long-term goal? Where do they want to live out the rest of their days? Because there are a lot of options out there for seniors. If they do truly want to stay at home, what needs to be done to make that happen? What resources need to be brought in? What modifications can make it safe for them? So that's all part of what we assess when we go in with a new client. And next we have our favorite, the family. So I don't know about you guys, but not all families are leave it to Beaver, I guess you could say. They're very intricate. And we're going to go in and we're going to really help problem solve. A lot of times our families are just overworked. They are they're dealing with their parents, their own families, their own jobs. So we're going to find out what their concerns are about mom or dad or aunt or uncle or whoever it is, and address those concerns. And I'd like to say all families get along, but that is not always the case. There are sometimes conflicts within families, and we are there to kind of help those families and mediate with them. I can rely on personal experience with this. So my husband is the youngest of 6 children, And he's lost both of his parents. And I am one of 5, and I've lost my dad. So we have both had to navigate very, very large families with very, very strong opinions. And unfortunately, our parents, no matter how much we hit them over the head, didn't have good advance directives. And so they left it up to those who love them to make decisions for them. And so I get what that's like when we go in to work with families, and I know what they're going through. And also, unfortunately, there are some people who just have no one. So when I say I'm the adult daughter or feel like it sometimes I really feel like I am, because there are people who actually have no one. But family is a big aspect of what we look at as care managers. And then obviously local resources and community partnerships. So it's our job to know those local resources in our community, how to access them, and stay on top of it. I was talking to Jamie yesterday as we were getting ready for today, and he's from Scotland, obviously, as you all can tell, but he's just amazed at how many nonprofits and organizations we have here in the St. Louis area that help with marginalized folks that we have here. And he's right, and it's ever changing. Sometimes we have 3 or 4 organizations doing the same thing and not as many collaborations as we should, but it is ever changing. I also, as a care manager, do a lot of household management. And what that might be is you got an older adult who lives alone, whose family lives out of town, and they're just overwhelmed and they want to stay at home, but they're just overwhelmed by everything that a house brings. So hiring someone to fix issues around the house and keeping up with their bills, or keeping up with maintenance around the house, things like that. We'll do that as well. And community partnerships. So there are a lot of great organizations out there, like Voice. There are just so many great ones, and it's our job as care managers effectively to know what those are. And of course, no one person can know them all. And I'm very fortunate to be a part of Care Choice, where we have about 14 care managers. And I live out in the St. Charles area, as does another one of my colleagues. And we try to know as much as we can about the area out here. But if I need to know something for a client in South City or South County, I know that I have other people on my team that I can reach out to, and other great organizations to lean on as well. Next up, we have advocacy. So it's our job to know what our clients' wishes are. Sometimes they'll tell us things that they won't tell their own family, but it's really our job to find out what their wishes are and to promote them, and always ensure that their needs are being addressed. There was a survey done a couple of years ago that showed the biggest value that a care manager could bring, or is needed for, is advocating for medical needs. So it's just, as you know, if you're in the sandwich generation like I am, who has a mom who is in a retirement community who needs doctor's appointments, but I have young adult children who also need me, it's impossible to be in 3 places at once. So someone who you can hire and rest assured that they're going to go in and advocate for your mom or your dad or your loved one. And then there's the legal aspect. I am not an attorney, and I do not play one on TV, but I know when to refer to legal experts in the field. And I saw we had a couple that were sponsoring this program today. So there's a lot of great attorneys and firms in our area that we can lean on to help our older adults and their families. One thing we do assess for when we go in is how can we help them with their estate to avoid probate? Do they have their current powers of attorney for finance and healthcare? Do they have their wishes known for their advance directive? So if we see those holes, we're going to encourage them to reach out to an attorney, maybe even go with them to that visit and help them get their affairs in order. And finally, sometimes the courts will ask for our opinions of things that have happened. I have a client right now that I'm dealing with that the courts mandated that he have a care manager to help him navigate life. So I have to report back to the court at times about the progress that he is making. So we work closely with attorneys and judges. So I've said I'm kind of like the adult daughter, a surrogate family member sometimes. But I will say what works for one of my clients works for one of my clients. They're all very, very different. So that's why care managers are very individualized. You just have to look at each person as its own as their own and just really help them specifically. What works for one, like I said, might not work for someone else. We're very, very client-centered. And as you've seen with the 8 areas that we kind of go through, we have that holistic approach. I use the example when I'm talking to people that sometimes we feel like Charlotte and Charlotte's Web. So we're kind of running back and forth across the web and linking them to services, and there's a gap and you try to fill that, and you got to spin a bunch of new solutions for problems, and you just kind of feel like you're running around. But it's just so helpful for that in that web to just have a lot of resources and other people that you can lean on and just kind of help that family know where to go next. So how do we do what we do? So I'm going to highlight for you kind of the process that we go through when helping an older adult. So first off, we're going to try to understand what's going on, starting off with an assessment and working with them on a plan of care, implementing services that they need, but following up, monitoring those services, and ongoing reassessment. So let's start off with assessment. And I know some of you on this call have done many, many assessments in your time, so you know what I'm talking about. But we're going to meet that senior wherever they are, whether they're at the hospital, whether they're in a rehab center or in their own home. We're going to go in and do a full assessment. If it is truly an emergency when we get called in, we may not get that done that day, but we will make sure that we follow up and do a full assessment as soon as we can. Take a couple hours to do that. We're going to evaluate those 8 different areas that I talked about. Mediate any family conflicts that are immediate that day or any crises that we are facing, and ensure all their immediate needs are met. And then the planning goes into effect. So a lot of times I will come back after an assessment and I'll come home to my office and I will start planning and start problem solving. And we have a wonderful software tool that we use that kind of helps me organize my thoughts. But I'm going to develop a plan for them. Some ideas, some short-term goals, some long-term goals. After listening to what they felt were the highest priorities, I'm going to also try to prioritize all of their needs and link them to services, evaluate those services, find the best options for them. And I'm not going to implement anything without their buy-in. I mean, obviously we are client-centered, so going back to them and talking through options and helping them come to conclusions. And more often than not, just being that peace of mind for family, knowing that they're not alone. And sometimes I just am that person that they can bounce ideas off of. So I think that's always great to have. Next up, we have education, advocacy, and communication. So we do a lot of hand holding, especially at the beginning, but sometimes our clients will hire us for just that, just kind of that initial assessment and kind of figuring out some care plans and options and resources. And then they may have family members that step up and say, okay, we don't need you anymore. And then we're just there if they need to reach back out to us. So we've educated them, we've linked them to services. But then there are others that kind of just either they don't have anyone or no one else is available, or they feel we are more qualified and they'll just say, hey, you take it from here, advocate for our mom or my dad and ensure that that quality is getting done. Finally, one of the biggest parts of our job is communication. So I like to think that we're kind of that hub. And you would think that in this day and age of technology, family members are able to communicate better through texting and FaceTime and all the different things that we have and email, but you still lose a lot of information through technology. So kind of having that one person to kind of keep everybody informed, I think is really, really important. So I told Jamie that I was going to do a game, but I couldn't figure out how to do a game over Zoom, one that I really liked anyway. So I wanted to just ask you guys a question, and maybe we can try to do it interactively by either chat or somebody just speaking up. But in speaking about communication, why do you guys think that having a central point person for communication might be important or crucial to an older adult? So somebody besides Jamie has to answer. Anybody? Jamie says, haha. reinforcing the same message, right? So I like this. The more people that you get involved, the more confusion that is bred. I like it. We can hear information without bias, fears, etc., interfering with understanding. Yes. How many times have you been to the doctor's office, even with one other person, and you hear one thing and they hear one thing, or maybe if you're the one getting the diagnosis, all you hear is that word, and then after that, you've kind of lost everything that the doctor said. So yeah, consistency. Absolutely. I love it. I love it. I love it. So just kind of keeping everyone fully informed and on the same page. I find this a lot with older adult children that live all over the country, when they're getting different messages from mom and dad. Just kind of keeping everybody on that same page, as someone said. So thank you guys for interacting. And if we were in person, I would make you get up and do something probably really embarrassing, or we do some kind of game or something. So I'm glad we are on Zoom, as I'm sure you are. All right, let's keep going here. All right, so ongoing reassessment. So I, as a care manager, always have a plan B. You have to see how things are going. You have to do constant following up. Sometimes I have plan C, D, and E, because no matter what you think this is the perfect plan that you have, something's going to come up. So constantly reassessing and making sure that things are not falling through the cracks. New things are going to come up. We all know that. There's a fall, there's an emergency, things like you try to head off and plan as best you can, but when things do come up, you just have to pick up the pieces, reprioritize, and keep going. Being proactive and initiating services and with the family, and letting the clients kind of help and set and prioritize their own goals. As with all of us, I think when we make our own goals and we know what's really important to us, we're going to be more apt to follow through. Same thing with working with, as a care manager, really keeping them involved and partnering, like I said, with the continuum of providers that are out there, and coaching the caregiver. So a lot of times when families come to us, the caregiver is just at their wits' end, they're burned out. They have their own problems. They're running their own household if it's a daughter or son somewhere. So just kind of coaching them and being there for them and being a listening ear for them. Or if it's actual caregivers that are coming into the home, we provide a lot of education and ongoing insight for them. So that's a lot about what we do and how we do it. So when would be a good time to bring in a care manager? So these are just some of the things that we've come up with. So when the concerns go beyond your own ability to help, or maybe you feel like this is out of your realm of expertise, might be a good time to bring someone in. Doesn't mean that you have to hire us forever. It just might mean you get a little extra help and then you're on your way. Sometimes they need information about community services, or they have little or no support from local family members. If you have a client or you yourself have a family member or are a senior, you feel like things just keep falling through the cracks and you're forgetting things and you just don't feel like you're able to organize your aging process or your care, is a good time to bring in a care manager. If you need unbiased information, somebody said that before. I think that's something that we are also very good at. We, like I said before, we get no kickbacks. There's no referral fees. When we go in to help someone, we are completely unbiased. So that might be a time to bring us in. Family again. So when you get those family members that just really can't agree about what the next step is for mom or dad, or husband or wife, should we move them? Do we need to bring in a caregiver? What is it? Their medicines, what do you think they should be on? There's a million decisions that have to be made. If the caregiver feels overwhelmed, as I said before, or they just need extra oversight, someone to come in, or obviously if there's been any kind of abuse, neglect, or exploitation, and they need someone to kind of monitor everything. I like to think that we add a little value to the team when you bring in a care manager, and here's some of the reasons why. So obviously we're very personalized to each client. As so many people are who work with older adults, we try to be as compassionate as possible. I like to say that I'm pretty much available 24/7. So when you are working with someone maybe at your hospital or long-term care community and the job's over at 5, you may not be able to access them till the next day. So my phone is open for my clients 24/7. And when I am away or busy, I have teammates who will back me up, but we have someone that's available to answer their phone at all times. We try to help people with that continuity of care and things from falling through the cracks. And I know that we're not completely inexpensive. But I will say that sometimes we can do things in a couple hours that might take a family member 2 weeks to do because they just have no idea where to start. So when you think about time as money and what we bring to the table, sometimes it can help contain costs. Quality control, I think somebody said that in the chat room, but just keeping that watchful eye on all parties that are involved. Obviously, as an adult, sometimes I don't like to hear what my kids have to say, and I'm sure that won't be any different when I'm 85. They're telling me one thing, but when you bring in someone else that offers a quality solution, it might be the same thing that child has been saying, but you bring in a professional, sometimes they will listen to them, and that ultimately leads to less family conflict. So we have been around for a little over 35 years. There is some research out there about care management. And one study I found was done by an ALCA chapter down in Florida. And they researched or surveyed the responsible parties of older adults who had used a geriatric care manager. And 97% responded that it had a positive overall effect on the client themselves. They also said that 99% said that it had a positive effect on their own lives. And I think I could relate to that as I help my mom all the time and my own clients. Sometimes you're just so exhausted and burnt out that your own quality of life starts to deteriorate. So I can get where they had those responses. The most common benefits that were cited in the research was that they got an objective assessment of the client's needs. So it wasn't, the client's long-term care facility saying, or their PT saying what they needed or so on. So you kind of had that objective person coming in that looks at that big picture. And just knowing that the client has a medical advocate was also in the top 3. And then again, contributing to peace of mind. I do have a quick case study, so I know we don't have a whole lot more time. This is not one of my clients, but one that has been brought up through our organization. So here's a little bit about Miss Jean. She's 76, suffers from Alzheimer's. She lives at home with her 78-year-old husband and 3 adult kids that all live out of town. They had brought in some caregivers in the past to kind of help out with Jean, but they had some poor experiences with some things that had happened, and the husband was just getting increasingly overwhelmed. Each kid, as much as they called or emailed dad, they were all getting conflicting information, and there was a lot of ambivalence around feeling guilty if they were going to have to place mom into a retirement community. They knew they needed help, but very reluctant to ask. Both the mom and dad, Jean and her husband, were staying home a lot, which increased their social isolation. They did have some adequate finances and even some long-term care insurance, but everyone just kind of felt stuck and didn't know what the right thing was to do and do next. So they did hire a care manager who came in and did an initial assessment and a consultation and came up with some interventions. They did a conference call with all the children and the parents outlining the needs and preferences and some just different options that they came up with. Then they secured commitment from all parties involved. And, 9 times out of 10, you can get everybody on at least most of the same page. There may be some holdouts, but you do know that everyone, you try to figure out that they all have the client's best interest at heart. And usually you can get them to commit to whatever it is that the majority agrees to. The next intervention is they got some intermittent in-home care for Jean as a means of respite. They helped match the caregiver themselves, and they continue to monitor those caregivers with home visits. They also instituted adult daycare for Miss Jean, which gave her some socialization and some cognitive stimulation, which is proven to help older adults with dementia. And most importantly, it gave the husband some respite. They hooked them up with support groups for not just the husband, but also the family, because it is very excruciating to go through this diagnosis. They set up a means for regular communication with all the parties involved. And when I checked on this case study, Jean was getting the care and support that she needed. The husband felt like he could be a husband again. He's still going to support group and even meeting with friends weekly. The care manager was dealing with problems because, believe you me, it does, because you have a care manager doesn't mean there's not problems that come up. So they're going in the home and dealing with those issues and providing more relief for the husband. As the situation progresses, there's a greater peace of mind for everyone, just knowing that there's a professional that they can call on. And things may ebb and flow, and they may have times when that care manager is really busy. But there's also times when the family's got things under control and they're just kind of there to help them out and be that listening ear. So overall, they're grateful and they're satisfied that for the care that they're getting. They avoided an emergency nursing home placement, inadequate home care providers, and just that time-consuming communication breakdown. If you, after this call, have questions, I'll be taking those. But if you just want to learn more about care management or how to choose one, I've got a few tips here for you. Some things that you might look for is just someone who is either certified or maybe in training to become certified. Also might want to look for years of experience. And I'm a big proponent of kids coming right out of college and getting into the field, but I also feel like care managers, all the ones that I know, have been around the block just a little bit, and they have a little bit of experience, even just a few years under their belt. So they know some of those resources and have experience dealing with older adults and their families. You're looking for a care manager who can be very responsive. So you're going to be able to tell that as soon as you reach out to them and how quickly they get back to you. It's good to know that they've been in that local area. So while I'm not from St. Louis originally, I've been here in St. Charles for almost 30 years. So I feel like I have a good knowledge base of the area. And I think that's important when you're looking for a geriatric care manager. And also look at the services they provided. I've only talked a little bit about what a geriatric care manager does, but there are care managers who work with people of all ages. I know even in our organization, we help people from the ages of 18 all the way to 100 or over 100 nowadays, or people with mental health issues or disabilities. So if you're honing in on looking for a care manager for something very specific, just don't be afraid to ask, is this your expertise? We all have different areas that we're better at than others. And then fees. Obviously here in the Midwest, as with everything, it's a little bit less expensive than on the coasts. Same thing for care managers. You can probably find a good care manager in our area between $100, $125 an hour. On the coast, it's probably going to cost you more in the lines of $250 an hour. I will say, as far as our organization goes, we do not, we only charge incrementally. We charge every 6 minutes in increments of 6 minutes. So if we're doing research for you or putting you through to services, we're not going to bill you for a full hour of time if we've only worked with you for, say, 12 minutes. So that is good to know. I'd also encourage you, if you want more information, to look on the ALCA website, which is aginglifecare.org. You can even go in there, and if no matter what your zip code is, you can put it in and it'll pull up care managers in your area. And that's a great network for us, because a lot of times we'll have people moving here from out of state, and we're able to, or moving out of state, and we can connect with care life managers across the country. So that is all I have as far as what it is geriatric care managers do and how we do it. So I am going to stop sharing my screen, Jamie, and you can tell me what to do next or see if anybody has any questions.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for an excellent presentation this afternoon. Thank you so much for your time. It really was so informative, and I very much believe all of our attendees will have learned a lot this afternoon. Please do enter your questions into the chat window if you have any questions, please. I was wondering, please, Kristy, if someone was looking to get into the field of being a care manager, where might be the first port of call? for someone looking to begin their career? Where would you advise?
So that website that I mentioned, the Aging Life Care Association, when I was thinking about being a care manager, I reached out to them. I also knew about the organization Care Choice here in St. Louis. I reached out to both of them. So what they did is they aligned me with a mentor. And she was based in Florida, and we had weekly calls. I was able to go out and shadow some local care managers. I was able to attend some of their meetings, so I could just kind of get a real feel for what it is. I mean, because you and I were talking even before this meeting about working 8 to 5 at a desk, and I did that for several years. And care management is not like that. You might be at a hospital room at 9 o'clock at night, or a care plan meeting at 2 in the afternoon. So I really wanted to see what it was like. And so, yeah, mentors, shadowing, reaching out to local resources that people who have used care managers before, getting some opinions. But I would recommend that national organization as well.
Thank you so much. I can see we have a question from Kim Fanning.
Yeah.
What is your average caseload?
So, Kim, that is a really good question. So I've been doing this for a year now, and it takes a little while to build your clientele. And then boom, Kim, I was at 14 on my caseload. And I quickly figured out that was way too many for me to provide the quality of services that I wanted to. So I like to keep my caseload somewhere around 8 or 9. You never know when, and also bear in mind that I don't want to work 50 hours a week anymore. I mean, that's why I left corporate America. That's why I left the organization where I was before, that I dearly loved. I didn't want to work that many hours before. I wanted to be there and have that balance with my family. So I would say right now I got about, I've got like 12, but only 8 or 9 are really active. And that's good for me. And every care manager is going to be a little different. So, yeah. What kind of support can care managers offer around Medicaid? So that is something that we have about 4 people on our team that specialize in Medicaid applications. And that is something that I actually have learned to do in this last year. So if someone thinks that they don't have the resources to actually hire a care manager, you might be surprised at if they're in long-term care and they know they're running out of resources, you might be surprised that you could really afford us, because I would say I can usually do a Medicaid application in about 5 to 7 hours. So for a few $100s, I will get with that family, get all the information together, and apply for services for them. Where if they went out and had to hire like an attorney to start from scratch, it might cost them a little bit more. Not all care managers do Medicaid applications, but they at least know who to point you to if they don't. But yeah, definitely something that we will work with as well.
I was wondering, in terms of soft skills, Kristy, what would be the best or some of the recommended attributes towards being a successful care manager, please?
Sure. Okay, I would say number 1 would be you have to be a problem solver, because that is really all we do is solve problems. So you might have been a stay-at-home mom for the last 10 years. You might be perfect for this because you have done nothing but solve problems every day. So that, in my mind, is someone who can just take a problem head on and not be scared of it. Know that one answer might not be there for everyone, but not afraid of it, and just really dive into it. I would say excellent communication skills, because you have to be communicating with so many different people. And when people are in crisis, or when people, I don't know about you guys, but those in the medical field right now, they are just burnt out after COVID. And so being able to empathize with them and go in and not attack them when things are falling through the cracks, you just have to know how to just put yourself in their shoes. So I think empathy, communication, and then I would say prioritization. So, you got your hands in a lot of different fires in your own personal life, and then also at work, and just lots of different clients, and knowing this fire with this client might be a little bit more important with the fire of this client. Sometimes your phone might be blowing up with 3 or 4 different people. So I'd say being able to discern what is really important and what can wait for just a hot minute. So those are some of the things I can think of.
Okay, I believe that may be all the questions for the moment. I would ask everyone in attendance today to share your feedback with us. There will be a survey which will display on screen at the end of the webinar. And of course, we will be sharing Kristy's presentation with you following today. We'll send the PowerPoint out to you. But thank you so very much for your time this afternoon, Kristy Bull. Thank you so very much. It's been an absolute pleasure and a fantastic learning experience. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Very welcome, and thank you all for giving up your time to listen to me.
Our next webinar is on April 12th, End of Life Care with Doulas. We will be looking at the important role of death doulas and the support that they can give to families, presented by Dr. Maria Cockrell. On May 10th, we will have Early Learning Signs and Symptoms of Alzheimer's, presented by Dr. Anne Steffens from Alzheimer's Association of Greater Missouri. On June 14th, we have Paracode, a presentation from Kimberly Lackey, Making Independence Accessible. Kimberly is the Senior Director of Programs at Paracode. Once again, thank you so very much for your time this afternoon. It's been a real pleasure, and we do hope to see you again soon. All the very best. Thank you. Bye-bye.